March 2025. This is Reef Fish Conversations with Adam Smith and Jacinta Jefferies on the 22nd of March 2025.
You
Jacinta,
want
would
me
you
to
like to give
start?
the
Yeah.
acknowledgement of
All
the
right.
country? Yeah.
So I would like to acknowledge the Wulgarukaba and Bindal people as the traditional custodians of the land in which we are presenting from today, and all of our viewers are from today. We'd like to pay our respects to their elders, past, present, and emerging.
And what we're planning here, oh, we've got another person coming in, Rochelle. What we're planning is to do one online presentation per month for 2025. We're encouraging a broad range of speakers from the community, government, science, traditional owners. It's all about sharing knowledge, leading to collaborations, and hopefully also field trips, because that's, I suppose, as a marine biologist, where we get real pleasure out on the reef, looking at species, learning in the field, sharing knowledge. I'm going to start with a very simple definition of a fish. They're cold-blooded vertebrate animals with gills and fins. And a few people are surprised sometimes that sharks and rays are also regarded as fish. But trying to learn about fish has some challenges. And one of those challenges is with common names. And I'm going to illustrate this with Plectrophomus leopardus. This species only has one scientific name, but it has more than a dozen common names. People call it coral trout, coral grouper, leopard coral trout. In Fiji, they call it donu. In the Philippines, they call it batu batu. So today we're going to share both scientific names, common names, and a little bit of fun facts about some of the top species that you might observe in the Great Barrier Reef. When Jacinta and I are out on a boat or working with students or interested fishers, particularly snorkelers say, I saw something really cool. It was a yellow fish or a red fish or it was a silverfish. What was it? And then that starts a conversation and we say, well, did you know there are over 1,500 species of fish in the Great Barrier Reef, over 4,000 in Australian waters? Can you tell me a bit more? Did your fish have markings on its eye? Did it have a spot on its body? Did it have lines or bands? Can you remember whether it had a long snout or a really distinctive dorsal or top fin, or was there anything else characteristic that might allow us to narrow it down? And when we narrow it down, fish taxonomy or ichthyology can also be classified as fish families, fish genus, and fish species. And I'll illustrate this with a very diverse family of groupers. So they all belong to the family Serranidae, the genus Epinephelus, and one particular species is Epinephelus lanceolatus, which is the giant Queensland grouper. Jacinta.
All right. So today we're going to show you the top 10 species of fish on the Great Barrier Reef. And these are the top 10 observed using the citizen science app iNaturalist.
And you might also notice that there's been almost 90,000 observations of 1,708 species by almost 3,500 observers and 2,000 identifiers. So it's really quite popular to watch fish in Queensland.
Okay, so number one is the lemon damsel, Homocentris mollucensis. So we've added in a bit of a fun thing with all our fish today, which is we're trying to describe their personalities. So this personality, it's mostly chilled out, but it can get a bit fiery. It's a very common species on the Great Barrier Reef, hanging around branching corals and often occurring in small aggregations. It's very easy to photograph and very easy to identify due to their bright yellow color. They mostly feed on algae and planktonic crustaceans, and they're quite a small fish, reaching only a maximum size of around 9 centimeters in length. Thanks, Adam.
Okay, so number 2, we've got the common name at the top with the scientific name underneath, then its maximum size. We've got a map of where these species have been observed by citizen scientists. That's the red squares, and the purple areas are its known distribution. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about the 6-banded parrotfish, Scarus frenatus. And I love talking Greek. So Scarus comes from the Greek word scaros, which describes a parrotfish, and frenatus is a Latin word meaning bridled, or a bridle-like mark or feature, which is very distinctive on the face of this very beautiful 6-banded parrotfish. I love Jacinta's initiative with personality. So in my view, this is a confident fish, but it is also sometimes a bit of a loner. Did you know that there are approximately 100 species of parrotfish belonging to the family Scaridae, and that parrotfish are known for their beak-like mouths and vibrant colours? One of the other things of interest with parrotfish is the juveniles, females and males, have very different colours, and the female is reddish brown with 6 to 7 dark horizontal stripes along its body and red fins. And the males, like some birds, are very beautiful, such as this green, blue, dynamic fish. Normally they're found in quite shallow water, right on top of the reef, near healthy coral, but they have been observed down to about 25 meters. And sometimes when they're feeding, you can see them in mixed schools of other parrotfish.
Now we've got the scissor-tailed sergeant, so Aberdufduf sexfasciatus. This one's personality type, it's quite assertive. This is because it can be territorial and aggressive to other more docile fish around. It may also be known as the strip-tailed damselfish. It's very similar in appearance to the Bengal sergeant, which Adam will speak about at number 10. It's also quite a small fish, reaching a maximum of about 16 centimeters. These fish live on coral reefs, often in groups surrounding a single coral bommy. They feed on larvae and invertebrates, zooplankton, smaller fishes, crustaceans, and various species of algae.
Number 4, let me introduce the steep-head or blunt-headed parrotfish, Chloris microrhinus. So chloris is derived from the Greek word chloris, meaning green, and aura, meaning tail, so the green-tailed parrotfish. And microrhinus, if you split up the word, means small nose. The personality of this fish, I think it's charismatic, and it's also quite smart. It grows pretty big, almost 80 centimeters. The large males develop a prominent forehead, hence the common name, blunt-head. Juveniles are black with horizontal white stripes, as illustrated below. They're found in many different reef habitats, including lagoons, inshore reefs, and ocean reef fronts. They're often seen in large schools where they're feeding on the algae on top of reefs. They play a very important role, ecological role in coral reefs, because as they graze, they excavate the coral to feed on the algae. I was a bit surprised that this species can be up to 15 years old. And the other thing that I learned when researching this talk is the flesh of the adults may be slightly toxic in some Pacific locations.
Right, so the common coral trout, Plectropomus leopardus, this is what Adam spoke about before. This one, the personality is smart and adaptable, especially when it comes to hunting and hiding. As previously mentioned, this fish can get slightly confusing with all the different common names it can be given. It's part of the group of family Serranidae, which has approximately 160 species. And this particular species is the most widespread of coral trout on the Great Barrier Reef. It's probably one of the most commonly fished species in the Great Barrier Reef. And you've probably either seen it snorkeling, diving, or maybe have even eaten it off the dinner plate. The coloration of the fish can vary with the time of day, the surrounding habitat or activity, but it is usually red to greenish brown with numerous small dark-edged blue dots. And they have that blue distinctive ring around its eyes, as you can see in that photo. The coral trout are often found as individuals or in pairs, swimming slowly near schools of small fish or resting motionless under coral outcrops or at the bottom on the seafloor. I found an interesting fact about this species is that they're protogynous hermaphrodites, which change sex from male to female during their life cycle. Thanks, Adam.
And another interesting fact is there's 6 different species of coral trout in our waters. You know, you have the coastal coral trout, Plectrophomus maculatus. You have the blue spot coral trout, which you often see in much deeper waters. They all change sex, but in terms of fisheries management, this one has a minimum size of around, I think, 40 centimeters. The blue spot coral trout has both a minimum and a maximum size to protect the large males. Okay, here's one that we see fairly regularly, the 6-banded angelfish. The top photo is a beautiful little juvenile, which looks very different to the adult. Pomacanthus sex striatus, again, from the Greek. But Pomacanthus is quite surprising. Poma means cover, and acantha means thorn. And I'll tell you a little bit more about that in a minute. And sex striatus is pretty obvious. It means 6 stripes. Personality, I'm going to go with scared, but also dangerous and noisy. And I'll tell you a little bit more about that in a minute as well. So why dangerous? And remember back to its description. Now, this isn't a 6-banded angelfish, but it's a similar angelfish species. Have a look at the spines on its gill cover. And I imagine one of the early taxonomists probably got spiked that inspired him or her to name this species. The other interesting thing is the common name angelfish. And some people say that you can see a distinctive shape of an angel with the elongated fins resembling angel wings in silhouette. Takes a bit of imagination, but perhaps you can. They're found all over the reef from very shallow water, 1 meter, down to 60 meters of water. I often see them either as solitary individuals or in pairs, particularly where there is rich corals or sponge habitats. And when alarmed, this species makes large grunting sounds. They really are quite loud and quite startling. And it's an omnivorous species which feeds on macroalgae, sponges, and tunicates.
Okay, number 7, the Australian long-finned eel, Anguilla ranhati. So this one's our only freshwater fish in the top 10 today. The personality I've given it is mellow but sneaky. It can be very sneaky with their ambush hunting style. It's one of 15 species of eel in the family Anguillidae. It's Australia's largest freshwater eel, growing to a maximum length of 1.6 meters and a weight of up to 22 kilograms, with the female usually growing much larger than the male. The long-finned eel is an olive green color with a mottled back and sides and a pale underside, as you can see in the photo. This eel is carnivorous, feeding on an assortment of aquatic vertebrates such as fish, turtles, and even small birds. As you can see in the map of distribution, they're found on the coastal side of the Great Dividing Range on the east coast, from up at Cape York, North Queensland, through to New South Wales, Victoria, and can even be found in Tasmania. They're mostly found in freshwater rivers, streams, dams, lagoons, and lakes.
Number 8, the blue streak cleaner wrasse, Labroides dimiadatus, maximum size about 10 centimeters. The scientific name for this one, I think, is a bit confusing. Labroides, from the Greek labrox, and oides, which means similar to. One of the early taxonomists thought that this was similar to a European sea bass, which I'm not so sure about. And demoides, I think, is better. It means halved or divided into 2 equal parts. And that's much more easy to understand with the white bottom and the black top. There's a number of different species of cleaner wrasse, but this is probably the most common. You often see them at cleaning stations where wrasses are waiting for customers, and they can be large coral trout, sharks, rays, to have their parasites removed, not only externally, but sometimes this little cleaner wrasse will get right inside the gills of the fish. And I've certainly been on the Yongala where the fish are hovering and so ecstatic that they change color, or might even go completely white. So they play a very important role. Generally, a cleaning station is managed by a dominant male, and if he disappears, the next smallest female wrasse will turn into a male. They defend their cleaning stations very well, because obviously, that's also a source for their food, eating the little ectoparasites. Another interesting fact is that there is another species of fish that mimics cleaner wrasses. There's a species of blenny that looks very similar. And the main way you can tell the difference is the orientation of the mouth. The blenny's mouth is below the eye. The cleaner's wrasse is in front of the eye. And this blenny will rush out and bite a chunk out of the customers, which is a little bit disturbing. That's the cleaner wrasse.
Okay, so number 9, the spiny puller, Acanthochromous polyacanthus. This one's personality is quite friendly and social, as it likes to stay in its groups. It's also known as the spiny chromis, and is another species of damselfish. However, it can be separated from other Indo-Pacific damselfish by its high number of dorsal fin spines. This one has 17 spines compared to other damselfish with around 8 to 15. It usually lives on coral reefs and inshore waters, growing to a maximum size of 14 centimeters. The coloration of this fish is actually quite highly variable. It's bluish grey in the southern Great Barrier Reef, and some coral sea individuals are almost entirely white. This can be sometimes confusing to identify and often mistaken for other species, such as the bicolor chromis or Chromis margaritifera. So that one I also definitely find tricky identifying, especially when I'm uploading it onto iNaturalist.
Yeah. And these fish allow you to get very close to them, and they turn side on, so they're easy to photograph, which is also pretty important to recognize. Number 10 is the Bengal sergeant, Abidephthus bengalensis. Where did this scientific name come from? Well, interesting, it comes from Arabic. Abidephthus translates to the one with prominent sides, Abu meaning the one with, Def meaning side, and Duf being an intensity. Bengalensis is, I assume, from the first observation or collection in the Bay of Bengal near India. It's a small fish, maximum size of about 17 centimeters, very distinctive, easy to identify, often seen in nearshore waters. So you're much more likely to see this at Magnetic Island or Jungbaden than in the coral sea reefs. Its personality, I think it's bold and a bit of a homebody. and they're a herbivorous fish that will often defend their territory, particularly during breeding times. And they've even been known to, I won't use the word attack, but while they're defending their territory, they'll nip divers or charge divers and try and scare you away from their home. Look, the other thing that we really try and encourage you is to, yes, use the common names, but also to try and learn a scientific name for a species that you have observed, caught, or added to iNaturalist. Some of them are a bit of a mouthful, but some of them are really easy. And one of the easiest ones that I love, the scientific name Remora remora. For the remora, anyone can learn that. And I'm also intrigued that the traditional owner name is also double-barreled, Walla Walla for remora. And look, the traditional owner names for some of these species vary up and down the coast, depending on the different group. These traditional owner names are from the Whitsunday area, where we did some work down there several years ago. I'd also like to point out that the traditional owners had the name Dindaguba for sawfish. So obviously this was a species that they saw regularly, but today this species, particularly in coastal developed waters, it's just never seen. You have to go to very remote parts of the Gulf of Carpentaria to see them in the wild.
Okay, so we're just going to go through some of the ways to share knowledge. So basically, here we've got number one, we've got record your fish observations. So that, and number two also goes in with that one, using iNaturalist and citizen science. So basically, when you're out in the water, taking photos of fish and uploading them using citizen science app iNaturalist to help you identify the fish and help also contribute to a whole database for anyone to access. We're also, obviously, as mentioned, doing a monthly presentation of all different types of fish, sharks, and all of that sort of thing. So here we've got a slide with the QR code for you guys to sign up to iNaturalist if you haven't already. It's a really great app, and in the next slide, I'll show you how we can use it. But basically, yeah, that QR code should take you straight there to sign up, and you can get it on your phone or on your computer.
And I know Rochelle is got a lot of observations, thousands of observations, and is one of the top observers in the Great Barrier Reef. Katie and Chloe, one of the challenges I often set interns or students is to either make 100 observations or 100 species within a year to boost your learning.
So this is just a little infographic that I made, just showing you how iNaturalist works. So basically you take that photo of a fish, in saying that iNaturalist can be used on land as well, it doesn't have to be a fish. But in this case, for a fish, you upload to your phone or computer, ensuring that the image is clear and you can recognize it and other people can recognize it. Then on iNaturalist, AI helps you identify the fish. So basically, you'll put in your date, time, and location, and then from the photo, AI will compare it with all the different photos of fish that they've got on the database and help you with an identification. And then once it's uploaded, the iNaturalist community of identifiers can help you confirm, correct, and refine your identification. So then once multiple experts have helped you identify it, it will become research grade. Yeah.
And look, I'm old, so I still read books and I treasure books. So I thought I'd just share some of my favorite ones with you. In the early days, it was Grant's Guide to Fishers. It was put together largely to assist recreational fishermen to know what they caught. I've got a waterproof version of that I used to take camping and out in the boat before computers. The other one is Sharks and Rays of Australia by Peter Last and John Stevens. That's great. And a lot of people can identify sharks, but very few know the names of rays. So that's a great resource. And for day-to-day diving and fishing, reef fish identification of the tropical Pacific by Gerald Allen and the team is a beauty. Moving from taxonomy to interest, I suppose, one of the books that we've found and purchased recently is The Secret Life of Fish, which talks about 50 interesting species that was put together by Doug Mackay-Hope, who's from the UK, used to work with David Attenborough. Really interesting book, well written. The next one, Discovery of Australian Fishes, is a history of ichthyology to 1930. That's a beauty. And I love The Naturalist, the remarkable life of Alan Riverstone McCulloch, who started out as a very young lad, working in the Australian Museum, doing artwork of fish, describing fish. He's got a soft spot for Lord Howe Island, which is where this photograph is taken of him taking a photograph of coral reefs. And interestingly, there's quite a few species of fish named after him or by him, including the Australian Murray cod, our biggest freshwater fish.
Okay, so coming up, we'll just wrapping it up. We've got a couple other speakers in the next couple months that are really exciting. So 16th of April, we've got Dr. Julian Pepperell. He'll be talking about pelagic fish, so mostly billfish, tuna, and sharks. So that'll be really interesting. We've then got in the next month on 14th of May, we've got Bill Sawnop from Infofish. He'll also be very interesting, talking about the relationship between fish and fishes and how, we can look at the information there. And then leading up to World Ocean Day and Reef Blitz on the 1st of June, Adam and I will be back talking about what we do for Reef Blitz over that week leading up to World Ocean Day, boosting knowledge and biodiversity. We've also got a quiz here on the right there. You can scan that QR code. We made this last year. 20 questions, basically a bit of fun just to see how many fish maybe you may or may not know and can identify on the Great Barrier Reef.
And if anyone wants to work with us on a small collaborative project, I'm happy to discuss opportunities to do a 2025 reef quiz that might, help you learn a little bit more or put something on your resume or participate in some of the activities that we'll be doing for Reef Blitz and World Ocean Day in June. We also put together field guides, which are available on our website. So there's field guides for fishers at Magnetic Island, Orpheus Islands, the Coral Sea, John Brewer Reef, the Ongala, and we're happy for others to suggest other locations or other iterations.